What's going on, guys? It's Zach here. Bring you guys another fantasy football video. This will be going over every single matchup in Week 5 and going over which players in each matchup I think are worth being in your starting lineups and which guys I think you should be sitting. Really love making these videos. It's super fun, sort of going game by game and sort of setting our expectations for everything. And it's really how I find myself setting my lineups often too. I look at the game environment. I think that's something that a lot of people sort of overlook. Is just how the specific game environment is going to affect how fantasy performances pan out. So. Super fun making these videos. I hope you guys are finding these videos useful. As always, if you guys have any specific start sit questions, you're more than welcome to let me know in the comments. I love helping you guys get your lineup set and hope I'm doing a good job so far. I think it's been a pretty successful season so far, but no matter how your season started, whether you're 0-4 or 4-0, long season left, plenty of time to make sure we can do our best and make the playoffs and end up winning our championships. So, going to be a lot of fun, and as always, just want to be here to help you guys out as much as possible. So, yeah, with that, let's just get into the first game here. Let's make it quick. So starting us off with the London game, we've got the Jaguars at the Bills. It's at the Bills, but regardless of that, it is in London. It'll be another 6:30 a.m. game. So friendly reminder, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you guys have your lineup set, especially for the players in this game when you go to sleep Saturday night, just in case you sleep in and miss out at the start of the game. Make sure that you're up to date on any potential injury updates. Looks like there's nothing that's really hanging in the balance going forward with this week, so should be okay there. But just make sure you're up to date and make sure you don't find yourself waking up Sunday morning with a player that didn't play or something like that. But that being said, the Jaguars, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, and Travis Etienne are all going to be guys that I'm confident in starting. I know that Ridley's been a little bit disappointing so far, but he's still a clear wide receiver one in this offense. I think he'll be better off going forward, and I do want to make sure I get him in my lineup. Then obviously Evan Ingram been really solid so far. Tight end position sucks. You got to keep playing him. And Etienne, the volume's there. He had 22 carries last week. Got to keep getting him in your lineups. The Bills are actually giving up a lot of yards at the running back position so far, so it's a good matchup for running backs, despite the fact that the Bills have a good defense. Christian Kirk could be a low-end wide receiver 3 for me this week. It's just a really tough matchup for opposing wide receivers in Buffalo. We saw them hold Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill down last week, but Christian Kirk's been getting the volume, can definitely play him. Trevor Lawrence would be like a low-end streaming option. Like I said, the Bills' defense is just legit. I'd be concerned about playing any of those guys, and I'd prefer to potentially look elsewhere, but Christian Kirk, I think you could still start pretty comfortably, but Lawrence is not someone I'm comfortable starting this week. For the Bills, it's pretty easy every single week. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and James Cook are all going to be must starts for you. Gabe Davis is going to continue to be like a solid wide receiver 3 or flex play. Keeps getting in the end zone. He's a really explosive player. This is a really good offense. He's a guy that it's one of the perfect flex plays for you guys all season. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox will be like fringe tight end streaming options as well. I don't really want to be playing either one of those guys in this game just because I don't expect the Bills to really need to score a lot. But that being said, I think you could technically do worse. So there are options if you want to use them. Next, we've got the Saints at the Patriots. Hopefully, Derek Carr is either healed up or ends up taking the week off and we get to see some Jameis Winston. But I would expect to see Derek Carr out there. We're just going to sort of hope that the shoulder injury is healed itself enough that we don't really need to worry. That's going to make Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave must starts. They're two guys that have seen too much volume in an offense that's been okay. So you got to start both those guys. Michael Thomas would be like a low end wide receiver 3 for me, and then Rashid Shaheed would be like a desperation flex play. I'd like to see Derek Carr play healthier and look for a better game environment before I'm trusting Shaheed, but if you're in a really deep league or you just really need a high upside play, I guess you could play Shaheed if you need him. For the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson is really the only guy that I'm comfortable playing. I still think that it is a tough matchup, so you're probably looking at like a low end running back 2 performance for him, but after this week, the schedule does soften up for him. Ramondre would be certainly a trade target for me. I bet he ends up making the buy low video next week. On top of that, I think that all the Patriot wide receivers I want to put on my bench, nobody's really established themselves. Seems like Kendrick Bourne or Devonta Parker is sort of the wide receiver 1 in this offense, but now that one is involved enough to trust them. Hunter Henry's been good so far for the Patriots, but the Saints are a really tough defense against tight ends. I would prefer to look elsewhere for a streamer if you can. Next, we've got the Titans at the Colts and what could be the return of Jonathan Taylor. Still sort of waiting to see what happens there. Did practice in full on Wednesday. I'm recording this video Wednesday night because I've got some travel to do later on this week for work. But that being said, I do think that you guys can definitely start Derrick Henry. The Colts defense is not something that certainly scares you from running back standpoint. This is also a game that Titans could win. That's certainly the game environment that we want to be using Derrick Henry in. DeAndre Hopkins would be like a low-end wide receiver 3 for me. The volume's been there enough. The Colts secondary is not great, so you could certainly play Hopkins. They just saw the Colts get gashed by Puka Nacua and the Rams passing attack, so Hopkins can be started for you guys if you want to. Chig Okonkwo would be a low-end streaming option for me, but not someone that I'm super excited about. And then I make sure to keep Treylon Burks on my bench until I see him sort of emerge a little bit more. For the Colts, Jonathan Taylor would be a low-end running back 2 if he's active. Zach Moss would be a low-end running back 2 if Jonathan Taylor is inactive. It's just a really tough run defense for the Tennessee Titans. It's not something that we want to exploit, but both these guys would probably be poised to get too much volume if they're the only guy. I'm sort of projecting Jonathan Taylor to be like a 70 to 80% snap guy if he's active, and Zach Moss would be getting all the work. So they'd both be like low-end running back 2s for me. in those respective situations. Michael Pittman, he's a low end wide receiver 2 for me. The Titans are a really great pass funnel defense, something that you really want to play pass catchers against. So Pittman's a good start. And then Anthony Richardson's just effectively a must start quarterback. He's been too explosive on the ground, really explosive deep passing as well. He just looks too good. He's a guy that I probably want to just force in my lineup this week. Next, we've got the Ravens at the Steelers. For the Ravens, Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews are going to continue to be must starts. We just saw Lamar finally hook up with Mark Andrews for 2 touchdowns last week. It's great to see Mark Andrews get going. He was one of my favorite options coming into the season and someone that I'm really excited to see take a step forward going forward the rest of the season. He looked a lot healthier last week. Zay Flowers is going to be a low end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 option for me. He's continuing to be scripted, a lot of passes, a lot of receptions near the line of scrimmage. He's a really explosive player, and sooner or later, I think he'll have a nice deep threat option and be someone that's going to be finally posting one of those spike weeks for us. But he's got a really safe floor, so someone that can definitely be in our lineups. Gus Edwards would be like a desperation running back too, but I would prefer to sit every single Ravens running back if I can. Nobody else really excites me by any means. We did see Keaton Mitchell get activated from his 21-day window, get activated today. Not someone that I want to be playing by any means, but it's just going to muddy the waters in Baltimore. It's not something that I'm excited about at the running back position. For the Steelers, George Pickens is probably the only Steeler that I want to play. He's been involved enough from a target share standpoint. He is the best option they have on offense to move the ball. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren would both be like low-end running back 2s or flex plays. I think I lean towards playing Jalen Warren over Najee in PPR formats and then Najee over Warren in half PPR and non-PPR. This is a game environment where I'd expect the Steelers to get down pretty early. Maybe a lot of dump-offs go to the running backs here, and we could use them in PPR formats, but it's just not an environment that I'm excited about. The Ravens' defense has been good. The Steelers are going to have to throw the ball from behind, and Kenny Pickett's probably going to miss this game, along with Pat Freiermuth. So not something that I'm excited about by any means, but you can definitely play them just because of how bad the running back position is. Next, we've got the Panthers at the Lions. For the Panthers, Adam Thielen's going to be a fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. He's been super good so far this season. He's the wide receiver 10 on the year. He's a guy that I'm probably going to keep playing, especially in a positive matchup against the Lions. Miles Sanders would be like a low-end running back 2 for me. He's just been really disappointing so far. He hasn't really gotten it going on the ground. I believe he's averaging like 2.9 yards per carry, and a lot of that's just this Panthers offensive line hasn't looked great. Miles Sanders is playing through a groin injury as well. He's limited on practice Wednesday. And the Lions are just a super tough run D all around. They've been really just fantastic, honestly, against opposing run offenses. So it's something that I'm excited about, but you could see Miles Sanders catch a lot of passes this week, and he could certainly be used, especially if he's maybe a little bit healthier this week than he was last week. For the Lions, David Montgomery is going to be a running back 1. It's a really plus matchup against the Carolina Panthers. He continues to see a ton of work. I bet we see 20 to 25 touches again. I bet he scores again in this game, probably catches a pass or two. Someone that's got to be in your lineups going forward. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a low-end wide receiver 1. Definitely someone that I'm excited about playing, although do monitor his turf toe injury. Dan Campbell was a little non-committal about him suiting up this week. I expect him to play, and it should be totally fine, but definitely something we want to keep an eye on. Realize he's not on this list here, but Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously a must start as well. He's going to be like a low-end running back 2 for me going forward, though. He's not someone that's been getting involved enough that I really want to trust him. I'd rather play him in game environments where the Lions will be losing, so then they maybe have to lean on him through the passing game a little bit more. This should be an environment where you see like 10 to 12 touches for him, probably 3 or 4 receptions. You're hoping he breaks a big play, but given how bad the running back environment is, you're probably playing Jahmyr Gibbs. Jared Goff in a home matchup against a bad defense, he's a good streaming option, but again, this is a game they'll probably get up pretty early in and not really have to rely on Jared Goff, so it's not the best option or best week to play Jared Goff. Sam Laporta should definitely be in starting lineups. He's been great so far this season. I definitely want to keep cramming him in there. And then I'm going to sit Jameson Williams and Josh Reynolds this week. I'm excited to see what Jameson Williams does for them, but he's not someone that I want to play until I see it happen. And then Josh Reynolds, especially now that he's got more target competition, is just not someone that I can trust right now. Next, we've got the Texans at the Falcons. For the Texans, it's been fantastic seeing CJ Stroud just perform so well through 4 weeks, and it makes Stroud a really high-end streaming option for me. The Falcons' defense is not by any means scary at all, and I think CJ Stroud's just been so good. I'm happy starting him as a streaming option. I've got one league where I have Justin Herbert on bye, and I am playing CJ Stroud as my streamer there, so that's the sort of environment where I consider playing CJ Stroud. Nico Collins is going to be a wide receiver 2. I'm definitely getting him in my lineups with how well he's been performing, and then Tank Dell is probably like a wide receiver 3 option. Prefer to play him in my lineup as well, although there is a possibility that Nico Collins gets shadowed by AJ Terrell, and that would open up a lot more for Tank Dell in the middle of the field. So we could see a sort of flip there again this week where Tank Dell potentially outperforms Nico Collins. Dameon Pierce is going to be a low-end running back too. You're probably playing him just because of the volume, but he has been super disappointing so far. For the Falcons, Bijan is the only Falcon that I think you need to play. He's obviously been fantastic. He looks like potentially the best running back in the NFL already with how young he is. Looks super explosive, super fun watching him play. You got to get him in your lineups. Tyler Algier would be like a desperation running back play, but if you do play him, just understand that you're betting on the Falcons winning this game. I don't know that I really want to bank on that against this Texans team. He's been performing really well so far, but in-game environments where the Falcons get out to early leads, we can see a lot of Tyler Algier. He seems to be really game script dependent. That's something we want to keep in mind. So Algier is not someone that I'm confident in. If you play him, you're basically banking on him either scoring or getting like 20 touches in a blowout win. I doubt this game ends up being a blowout, so you're just hoping he falls in the end zone. I would prefer to keep Algier on my bench. Drake London, he's a low-end wide receiver 3. The Texans' pass defense isn't fantastic, and it's not something that I'm super excited about because I don't think the Falcons will need to throw the ball too much this week. Kyle Pitts and Johnny Smith are both like super low end streaming options. I'd prefer to bench them both. Just do yourself a favor. Don't go through that headache. Johnny Smith's outperformed Kyle Pitts, but it just sucks. I don't really want to play either one of them. I just keep them both on my bench if I can. Next, we got the Giants at the Dolphins. The Giants have been absolutely abysmal so far this season. That being said, I think Saquon Barkley's got to be in your starting lineup. He's just been too talented, too involved in the offense. He's obviously starting for you guys. Darren Waller is probably in your starting lineup because you probably don't have a better option, but obviously it's getting to that point where you might want to start looking at the waiver wire for a different option. If you manage to pick up a high end option, if you got Laporta, you're obviously playing him over Waller. Situations like that, you don't necessarily need to be playing Darren Waller. Outside of that, for the receivers in New York, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's sort of separated as the clear wide receiver 1 in this offense. It's not something that I'm excited about, but if you need to play him, he'd be like a low-end flex play in PPR formats only. Daniel Jones, a desperation streaming option. I know this could be a game environment where they have to throw the ball a ton, but this offensive line's been brutal and other receivers are getting open. I don't want to play Daniel Jones if I don't have to. And then for the Dolphins, it's easy. You're starting Tua, Mostert, A-Chain, Tyreek, and Waddle. They're all must-starts. Super excited about A-Chain this week. It'll be exciting to see him in a game environment where they're absolutely dominating again. They're probably going to win this game by 14 to 20. It's going to be super fun to watch this offense just tear up a Giants defense that's been really bad, and I think A-Chan's going to be a really explosive player again, so I'm super excited about him. Next up, we've got the Bengals at the Cardinals. For the Bengals, obviously it's been super disappointing so far, but I think Joe Burrow is going to be like a low-end streaming option. I don't really want to be playing him. I'd rather see him perform at a high level before I trust him in my lineup, but I certainly understand if you do need to play him. Jamar Chase is still a must-start. He's been really good. He's offered you like a 14.4 point per game floor so far. The explosive game is coming, and sooner or later he'll take one of those short passes to the house and be a top 5 receiver on the week. So got to keep playing Jamar Chase. Both running backs in this game, Joe Mixon and James Conner, they're both going to be low-end running back twos, guys that are getting a ton of volume in mediocre offenses. Tyler Boyd's going to be like a flex option for you guys, a guy that should see 6, 7 targets, maybe 8, guy that's probably going to catch 5 passes and maybe get 50 yards. Marquise Brown, a low-end wide receiver 2 for me, someone that I'm excited about just so far how well he's been performing. I sort of cooled off on him a little bit going towards like the end of the offseason, but he is someone that I talked up a lot earlier on in the offseason. At one point, I had him ranked as like a top 15 wide receiver on the season. That might have actually been just right. He's the wide receiver 18 so far, and eventually he will get Kyler back, so that's super exciting. Michael Wilson, another guy I talked about a little bit earlier on in the offseason, and someone I highlighted in the waiver video. He's a guy that I think you could play in the flex as well. I do prefer him to Tyler Boyd this week. He's got that big body. He can certainly score a touchdown. He just looks really good so far. And then Zach Ertz for the Cardinals. He's like a low-end streaming option. He's getting a ton of work in this offense. He's got a 25% target share. He doesn't look very good by any means, but he leads the NFL among tight ends on target share. That much volume can't really be ignored. If you're in a PPR format, Zach Ertz could certainly be an option for you guys. Next, we've got the Eagles at the Rams. For the Eagles, it's pretty easy. Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith, they're all must-starts. At the tight end position, I would keep starting Dallas Goedert. He's someone that I still think is going to eventually bounce back, but it is starting to look like this one could be a miss on my part. I talked up a lot Dallas Goedert all offseason as a guy that I was really expecting to take a step forward. That might not be looking like it's going to happen. I still don't think the verdict's out, but I'm a little bit worried about it. I don't think you need to keep playing Dallas Goedert in one of my most long-standing leagues. Dallas Goedert actually got dropped this week, so not a guy that I think a lot of people have a lot of confidence in, but I do think he's still worthy of starting, but you can certainly look elsewhere if you want to. For the Rams, Kyren Williams is a low-end running back 1 for me. It is a tough matchup against the Eagles, but he's going to catch so many passes. He's got a good chance to score in a given week. You got to keep playing him. Puka Nacua, a low-end wide receiver 1 if Cooper Kupp is inactive. He's a wide receiver 2 if Cooper Kupp plays. Kupp is obviously a wide receiver 1 if he's active. The Rams aren't going to roll him out there unless he's ready to go. Tutu Atwell will go from a wide receiver 3 to like a flex play if Cooper Kupp is active. And then Tyler Higbee, low-end streaming option at the tight end position, but I'd prefer to look elsewhere if I can, especially if Cooper Kupp is on the field. Next, we've got the Jets at the Broncos. I will actually be at this game. It's been super exciting. My dad and I are going to go to that game. We've got a goal of going to a game in every single stadium. This will be our first time in Mile High Stadium, so that'll be super fun. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson in this game, they're probably going to be started. They're guys that, against this Broncos defense, you're not going to get a better matchup. They're guys that I definitely want to get into my lineups, especially Breece Hall, who now they're saying doesn't have a snap count on him. Should be a guy that's going to get a full workload and definitely is explosive enough to break any sort of play for a touchdown. Tyler Conklin, a decent streaming option at the tight end position, to be honest. I'm actually streaming him in the subscriber league this week because I had Pat Fryermuth, so decent option. I do think this Broncos defense gives it up to the tight end position. We just saw Cole Kmet score 2 touchdowns against them. Conklin was involved last week, and you could do a lot worse than Tyler Conklin this week. For the Broncos, Russ is a decent streaming option at the quarterback position. He's just been really solid so far. He's a top 10 quarterback on the season. He's running the ball quite a bit. His deep ball looks good. He's definitely a guy that you can play, and especially with guys on bye week, I think you could do a lot worse than Russ this week. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are both going to be wide receiver 3 options for me this week. Jaleel McLaughlin and Samaje Perine are both going to be low-end running back 2/flex plays. Another one that I'm super excited about. I would lean towards playing McLaughlin over Samaje Perine, but I think it's kind of gross. You probably get a 50-50 timeshare. I think that you might see Perine get the goal line work, which is concerning. And then obviously McLaughlin might be the primary pass catcher here. And then if Javonte suits up, I'm probably just going to sit every single Broncos running back, although I don't expect him to. For Marvin Mims and the Broncos, I think Mims just needs to see the field more before I'm trusting him in my lineup. But man, he looks really good. Sooner or later, he's going to get a full workload and be a guy that we might be starting week every single week. So keep holding Marvin Mims, but we just want to see him get on the field more before we trust him. Chiefs at the Vikings. Obviously, you're starting Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce every single week. I think Isaiah Pacheco sort of moved into that tier for me as well this last week. He got a ton of work, he had over 160 total yards. He's a guy that's definitely going to be in your starting lineups at this point. I would continue benching every single Chiefs wide receiver going forward, but Rashee Rice does look intriguing. He looks to be the number one wide receiver in this offense. He'd be the guy that I want to keep rostering, but I don't trust him in my lineup just yet. For the Vikings, Cousins, Jefferson, and Hawkinson are all going to be in your lineups. They've been really good so far. I think Alexander Madison's like a low-end running back too. A little bit concerned that Cam Akers is going to come in, steal like 30 to 40% of the snaps, and just sort of make it a little bit too muddy. But Madison still looked good last week. He performed really well, and he's been good for the last few weeks in fantasy as well. So I think you can keep playing Alexander Madison. Jordan Addison obviously had a really rough last week, giving you guys a goose, but the Vikings only threw the ball 19 times last week. I bet they throw it over 40 times this week. Addison's too good of a player. This is going to be a game that the Vikings are going to need to put up points in, so Addison can be a flex play if you need to play him. Next, we've got the Sunday Night Football game between the Cowboys and the 49ers. For the Cowboys, Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb are the only Cowboys I think you need to start, although Jake Ferguson is a really solid tight end option. He's looked really good so far. They're utilizing him a ton. I think at this point he's a week in and week out top 10 option. Michael Gallup for the Cowboys is a desperation low-end wide receiver play. He's been really involved the last 2 weeks. Brandon Cooks just might not be completely healthy, so I'm a little bit concerned that once Brandon Cooks heals up a little bit, we'll be looking at a situation where both of those guys just aren't really playable at all. But I don't really want to play either one of those, Cooks or Michael Gallup. For the 49ers, CMC, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle are all in your lineups. They've just been too good so far. Obviously, Kittle's been the one that struggled so far a little bit, but with how bad the tight end position is, you're just going to keep playing George Kittle. And then I would bench both quarterbacks in this one. The defenses are really good. We could see a situation where this game ends up being like a really low-scoring affair. I think we end up seeing like a 25 or 24-21 sort of game here, but it's just tough to tell with how good these defenses are playing. I think there's a world that exists where the Cowboys struggle to move the ball against the Niners, and that could lead to a lower scoring game. So I would just prefer to bench both quarterbacks here. And finally, we've got the Monday Night Football game between the Packers and the Raiders. For the Packers, Aaron Jones is going to be a must start. I think he will be finally off that snap count that we saw last week on Thursday Night Football. He's been too good so far. He just looks too good once he's on the field. He's going to be out that you got to get in your starting lineup. Romeo Dobbs, he's a really nice wide receiver 3 option. He scored 18 or more fantasy points in 3 or 4 weeks. He looks to be the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay. I want to get him in my lineup in a plus matchup against the Raiders. Jordan Love would be a streaming option for me. Again, it's a really positive matchup for the Packers. I think you can certainly play Jordan Love. Christian Watson, he's a flex asset for me. I want to see him be on the field more, perform at a higher level before I trust him every single week, but he's obviously an explosive player. You can use him in your flex if you want to. Then Luke Musgrave, he's a streaming option at the tight end position, a guy that should be back from his concussion last week, looks really good when he's on the field, and sooner or later he's going to have a really deep touchdown and be a guy that's going to be a really nice option for you guys at the tight end spot. For the Raiders, it's pretty easy. Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, they're must starts. They're superstars. They got to get in your starting lineups every single week. Then Jacoby Myers is a solid wide receiver 3 option. Didn't really performed very well last week, but they had the backup rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. He had a really deep touch, or a really deep pass get called back to an OPI. It's like 6 red zone targets so far in the NFL this season. It's like tops in the NFL. A guy that needs to continue to be started because he's definitely just got that quality role in this offense with how consolidated their target tree is. So I'd start Myers this week if I could. So that'll do it for this week's video of my start sit video. I've gone through every single matchup so far this weekend and sort of given you guys which guys I think should be in your starting lineups and which guys I'd be looking to sit. Like I said earlier, as always, if you guys have any specific start sit questions, let me know in the comments. I love helping you guys get your lineup set. It's a lot of fun. I really appreciate interacting with you guys. Sunday morning, an hour before the morning games kickoff, so sort of during like the 4th quarter of that London game, I'll be doing my Sunday morning live stream. I will be in a hotel room, probably streaming from my laptop, so could be a little bit less clean and a little bit cleaner, less clean of a production here, but should be fun. I'll make sure I get you guys that video. Maybe you guys will see my dad or something. Maybe he'll show his face. So that'll be fun. That being said, super excited for this weekend. It's been a lot of fun so far throughout the season. We're 4 weeks in. A lot of football left to be played. So however your fantasy teams are doing, there's a long way to go. And if you guys want to make sure that I'm here all season long to help you guys win your leagues, there's like 4 or 5, 6 videos that come out every single week. I'll be here all season long to help you guys win. All you've got to do is subscribe to the channel so you get access to all that. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you just give this video a thumbs up, it really helps with the algorithm. And that being said, I want to thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.